I get asked sometimes when I get done squatching, I'm out in the woods, doing paranormal hunting, looking for monsters, how do I like to relax? How do I reload? I like to go down the old bars at Diamond Bear. They're down here at 600 North Broadway Street in North Little Rock, right up the street from Dickey-Stevens Stadium. I enjoy the Mac Daddy. Some macaroni and cheese, a little brisket, everything. I like to have a cold one, have a good time, relax. The staff is great. They're friendly. They're outgoing. Paul, the chef, is going to make sure that you're going to need a doggy bag on the way home. He's going to load you up. Baker and Bart, the owners, two great guys. You got to go down there and meet them at least. Go down there, check them out. They also allow you to reserve the back room. You can have it for private parties and functions. You can give them a call at 501-406-7819. Again, that's 501-406-7819. Tell them the Drunken Cryptid sent you. And welcome back to another episode of the Drunken Cryptids. I'm your host, Matthew Orton. And I do want to give a shout out real quick to Dylan over there at blademedia.com. Dylan, thank you for the graphic. Thank you for the website. You guys, Blade Media did the graphic for us for our logo. And they also built the website. If you want an example of what Blade Media can do, please go check out their website, blademedia.com. That's Blade, B-L-A-Y-E-D, media.com. So go give them a shout out. Thank you, Dylan. I appreciate everything you've done. And of course, special shout out to the team. I don't do this by myself. I have a good team that supports me and surrounds me. So I definitely want to give a shout to you guys. As always, I mean, I'm not where I'm at, because of me. It's because of the team that I have around me. So thank you again. Appreciate it. All right. Shows coming up. We do have on January 14th, we are going to be at the Censored Monkey from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Come on out, meet us. We'll have the equipment. We can record some of your encounters. There's some folks started reaching out to us to are going to meet us up there. So come out, join us. We'll have a good time. It is a 21 and only establishment, though, so you got to bear that in mind. Sorry, kids. On February 8th, we are going to be at the Paradise Pizza in Ozark, Arkansas. That's from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Again, February 8th, Ozark, Arkansas, Paradise Pizza, 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. We're going to be doing an open town hall meeting with Todd Neese, good friend of mine. Great guy. You get a chance to come meet him. Ask questions to myself, to Todd. It'll be hosted by the Arkansas Bigfoot Cartel, who will also be doing some expeditions that weekend. So if you want more information on that, go ahead, email me again, message me again, drunkencryptids@gmail.com. The big news is April 5th, live show with the Cryptids of the Corn guys. That's right, they're going to come down here to Arkansas. We're going to be at Old Bart's, 600 North Main Street in North Little Rock from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. That's on April 5th. Tickets are for sale. This is a ticket event, you guys, so limited seating, limited availability. I'll be recording for an hour. They're going to be recording for an hour. I know what Justin and Jay are going to be talking about. I know what I'm going to be talking about. It's going to be a good time, you guys. You get a chance to meet and greet with us, ask us questions. With a live show, we get a chance to kind of show pictures, versus like a radio show, how you just hear us talk, we describe, but we get a chance to show pictures. We'll be sharing everything that we've been doing, what we've been up to. It's going to be a lot of fun. You get a chance to meet and greet with us. Old Bart's is going to have a full menu available, including the Drunken Cryptid Burger, which is an amazing burger. Paul, I love it over there. Thanks, man. That's on April 5th, though. The ticket information is available on the website. It's on our website. It's on the Cryptids of Corn website, and it's going to be in the description of the show below. So please make sure that if you want to join in, great. Get your tickets before they go because they are selling. If you are coming from out of town, go ahead, message me. I can help you get hotels in the area close by. That way, you know where it's at, and you get a chance to hang out with us. I'm not gonna lie, we're gonna visit with you guys. The show's about y'all, so come out, hang out with us, and join in. And of course, you guys, I appreciate all the support. Keep liking, keep sharing. It means a lot to me. Keep commenting. If there's an episode you like, great. Drop a comment. Hey, I love this show. If you don't like it, well, don't comment. I mean, the world's full of trolls. It really is. Not as mean as there used to be. But go ahead, like, comment, share. I appreciate all the 5-star reviews, you guys. I really do. The more comments we get, the more that we get out there in the algorithm, and that helps the show grow, and it can reach some other people who are trying to maybe get some encounters, they feel lost about. So this does help folks out. So the more you like it, the more you share it, the more people get out there. So I appreciate it. But again, if you've had an encounter, and you want to talk about it, email me, drunkencryptids@gmail.com. And follow us on all your social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, X. We are everywhere. So appreciate it. But now, on to the show. Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Drunken Cryptids. I'm your host, Matthew Orton, and I've got a special guest with us this evening, you guys. I got Jason, i.e. Doc. I hope you're okay with me calling you Doc tonight, Jason.
Sure.
Ah, man, I appreciate that. But Doc has had a lifetime of encounters dealing with our, big-footed furry friend. Gave the name away already with the big-footed furry friend. But a lot of other paranormal encounters that kind of lead into some of where he's at now today. Kind of molded him, kind of transformed him. He's got a lot to say, and he's got a lot to talk about. And I highly recommend you guys sit back, relax, and just enjoy the show. But, Doc, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for asking.
No, hey, man, thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure.
And we got connected through TikTok. Look, see, TikTok's not all that bad, you guys.
No, it really isn't.
I was on the anti-TikTok thing for the longest time. I really was.
Oh, me too.
Yeah, because everybody was all TikTok. I'm not. I hate being like the trendy guy. You know what I mean?
Right.
I didn't want to be the trendy guy. So when I got the podcast started, my ex was like, you should get a TikTok. That'll help you get your name out. And I've got some really great encounters. Made some really good friends on there so far. I get the honor of calling you Doc, so I could count you now in that book. So,
man.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, Doc, man, I'll let you take it away. The show was all yours, man.
Oh, all right. Well, I guess we'll start. My name's Doc, or Jason, and my nickname is Doc. I'm I guess you would call me a young 50-something-year-old gentleman living in North Georgia. I used to live in East Tennessee at some point, but I grew up in northern New York, up by the Canadian border, a little town called Sackett's Harbor. And it's a real small area as far as towns. They have villages is what they're deemed up there. And so I grew up on a small farm in northern New York, and grew up with very pragmatic parents and Depression era kids that grew up to be hardworking Americans, and just kind of living the country boy dream, just like the Johnny Cash song. I'm a huge Johnny Cash fan, and that song "Country Boy" more or less is how I lived my life. I had a lot of work to do on the farm, but when there wasn't any work to be done, I was out having a lot of fun too. So, anyways, that's a little bit of a background on myself. Where'd you like to go with this?
Just start at the beginning.
Okay.
Because I know some of your beginning. Because you were on the confessional with Tony.
All right.
So, and I remembered your episode when we were talking, and I jumped back to it the other day, and started listening to it. I stopped, and I was like, nope. I want to be refreshed by everything again. And, because there's so many, you listen to so many podcasts, and there's certain episodes that stand out to you. And yours was one of those that stood out to me. So having you to come on my show is actually, I'm not going to lie, I'm extremely honored by that.
Oh, well, pleasure's mine, man. The honor's mine. As I was saying just before the show started, this is my truth. It's I kept it to myself for a lot of years. I'd reveal it a little bit every now and then, but more or less I kept it to myself because it was just safer to do so. Until I just didn't want to do it anymore. I had encounters with a lot of things. I saw things as a little boy that I was told weren't real, and but I would see them, and and when it comes to things like that, especially things you see in front of you visually, once you see it, you can't unsee it, and no matter how often people tell you didn't see it, or you saw something else, you saw anything but what you thought you saw, you become a little bit more solidified in what you saw. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on which end of it is. But I had I've always been a little bit of a sensitive. And when I was a little boy, I lived in an old farmhouse on an old dairy farm. The house itself had been built in the late 1880s, and it had a stone silo on the property, and just a kind of a really old, cool house. And when I was a little boy, I would see things around this house. I used to have the ghost or spirit of a World War I soldier would come into my room and sit down on my bed and pat my leg, like, don't be afraid, assuring me, trying to keep me at ease. And I could see this man, and I could describe him today, exactly what he was wearing, how he looked, how he wore his hair, the mustache. I can describe it all. But he became my buddy, my friend, and I would talk to my mother about my friend that came to see me, and I would see him in the daytime. We talk about, you mentioned earlier, pre-interview, that you're talking about your encounter in Tombstone, in the broad daylight, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I would see this man in the daylight, and when I would catch him, he used to like peek into my bedroom door and kind of like look around the doorway to look in on me, like an uncle would check in on a child in his room, or that kind of thing. Nothing creepy or anything, just kind of checking on me. And I can remember.
Was he transparent at all?
Sometimes he wasn't. It's very interesting. Like as I recall, this sighting I had at this particular time in the daytime, I was sitting on my bedroom floor playing with my Lincoln Logs or Tinker Toys or Matchbox cars or something. I was playing with all that kind of stuff, and I happened to look over, and I could see a boot, and I could see the pant leg was tucked in the boot like a soldier's boot. And I could follow up his pant leg, and when I got up to about where you would see his chest or shoulders, he ducked back, and so I stood up and went to the doorway and looked down. I had one of these accordion gates. Do you know what I'm talking about? They're like a wooden springy gate they used to make when I was a kid.
Yeah, kind of the childproof area.
Yeah, and they were these. You pinch your fingers in them trying to close them up, but
yeah, I remember.
I had
those.
one of these across my door. I didn't have a door on my bedroom but I had one of these gates across there, and when I would look out the doorway, I could look to the left, and there was a little walkway, but there was a big railing because we had a big winding staircase in this house. It was an old house, and the rail went all the way around, so you could lean over the rail and look all the way down to the first floor. And I stepped to the doorway and looked to the left between the wall and the railing where there's this walkway, and there was nobody there. So that was the one daytime sighting encounter that I had with this soldier guy. And I had an encounter where he came into the room one day or one night, as I said, and sat down I remember these things clearly. And I would tell my mother about my friend, my soldier friend. And she thought I was just talking about because I had my brother's toy soldiers. And, she was just, my mother was very busy. She was a housewife and a farmer's wife, and was busy. I had an older brother and an older sister, and, she was busy. So, she would just like pass it off like, oh, that's just, you have such an imagination or something like that. And I mean, like, no. It was not imagination that my friend was there. I saw my friend. And then I had I'm
going to pause you on that one, because you're absolutely right. It seems like for the longest time, I was fortunate enough to grow up in a house to where we believed in the paranormal. And it was, I did grow up in a split family. So I had my mom and stepdad. And then I had my real dad and my stepmom. And my real dad was not a believer of any of this at all. None of this. And if you were to mention it to him, same thing. Oh, that's not what you saw. No. My real dad, he's a black and white kind of guy.
Right.
There's no gray in the middle. And so my stepdad, was gray. My mom, gray. And I was fortunate to have that support, with some of, what we saw. We lived in a haunted house as well. I mean, it was a very active, aggressive haunting.
Mm-hmm.
And, I asked you earlier the transparent because, I've seen shadow people before, and I've only can recall one encounter in my life to where I actually saw, like say, a ghost.
Right.
And it was not transparent. It was like solid looking as the wall I'm looking at right now.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's what I recall. As I recall this, I could feel this man sit on my bed. I could feel him pat my leg. It was but whether he was transparent or not, I can't recall that. I'd say yeah, because I knew he wasn't. I knew that it wasn't a what you would call a standard, human being. You know what I mean? It wasn't a flesh and blood. I knew it was something different, whether or not, but I could feel him sitting on my bed.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. So then I had that encounter, and then I also had a run in with again this rake like creature that this house had old asbestos shingles. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I
When I
do.
say asbestos shingles,
Yep.
they would lock together, and they were usually like a gray or a blue or so this house was covered in those, and it was rough. It was like the shingles on your roof, but it was on the siding, and I can recall this thing. I could hear it crawling up the side of the house up to my bedroom window, and we didn't have AC in our house. We didn't have window screens over our windows. When it needed to be cool in the summertime, my mother would just fling the windows open. And this is what it was. It was a second floor window facing the road. There was a road there, and it was actually on the side of the house where the main entrance was. There was a mud room and a kitchen entrance on the back of the house. There was a side door, and then there was the main entrance. And my bedroom was right over the main entrance doorway. And it was an old house. This house had like 14-foot ceilings. It was a big house. It was a tall house. So and it was massive. As a little boy, it was massive to me. I've been by there since, and it's not as massive. Okay, but it's amazing how your perspective does change as you get bigger. But so I heard this scraping sound on the side of the house, and the way my bedroom was set up, I could, if I sat up in my bed and looked to my left, I could see the window. And that's what happened. I sat up on my bed and I looked to the left and I heard this scraping. And then I saw these two gangly arms come over the windowsill, come up on the windowsill. And it was like elongated fingers, elongated forearms, a uniform type clothing, maybe. I'm not sure. That's a little vague and blurry. I used to think it was wearing a uniform, but I can't recall if it was wearing clothing, but I believe it was. But it changed, and this is what's really creepy about this whole thing. I've never heard anybody else having witnessed anything like this. But so this thing steps over the windowsill, and it's got like a hockey mask like face is the only way I can describe it. Olive shaped eyes, not like a gray or a tall gray, nothing, but similar, but big eyes, very, very, not really hard, very hard to distinguish, but you could see like nostril pits, you want to call it, as opposed to there was no nose.
Okay.
Nostril pits and a smooth pull tight, maybe mouth. But all I remember is these big dark black eyes, and so it comes over the windowsill, and it's probably in height size. It's probably about 5 foot tall, maybe. I'm thinking again. I'm looking at it from a kid's point of view,
Yeah.
and I'm trying to rationalize the size. As a kid, it looked 12 foot tall to me, but I'm assuming, based on my perspective and based on where the windowsill was, I'm assuming it was around 5 foot tall.
Okay.
And it would look right at me on the bed, and then it formed a smile, And as it formed a smile, it started to, the only way I can describe it is it started to pixelate, like, when you have satellite television, the picture will kind of break up.
Yeah.
It started to flicker like that, and it flickered, and he turned into a clown. And then it flickered again, and it turned into Mickey Mouse. No, excuse me, I'm trying to remember. Fred Flintstone. And then it flickered again and turned into Mickey Mouse. And the only common thing in all these things that it was, when it changed its shape, was the eyes were black. And I remember seeing Fred Flintstone, the cartoon Fred Flintstone, with jet black eyes, and it just chills me out. I get the chills just thinking about it and describing it to you. So as it's looking at me, its eyes always stayed on me, but its caricature changed. And I looked at it and I said, I still see you. And it started moving towards my bed. It come right at me. I like yelled at it, I still see you. And so it creeped towards the bed, and I started yelling for my mother. And when I yelled for my mother, this thing flew out the window like a bullet, shot straight out the window like a bullet. And my mom come in, and I said, a monster. I saw a monster. And she said, oh, you had just had a bad dream. And I did not have a bad dream. I'm telling you the story right now. I have tears coming out of my eyes. And I still recall when I pointed at it and said, I see you, it coming at me. And so I had that encounter. And this was on this dairy farm, and it was an active dairy. We had about 90.
Let me pause you real quick. I want to go back to this thing real quick.
Okay.
Was this the first time you saw it, or do you see it again?
No, it's the only time I've ever seen anything like that.
Okay, I have some theories right off the bat. So let's go back to I want to go back to the World War I soldier. Okay.
Okay. All right.
So the World War I soldier that you were seeing was comforting. It would
very
pat
comforting.
You on the leg.
Very a kind soul.
Okay,
yeah, very kind.
No, you were adopted.
I'm adopted. Yeah.
Okay. So what if the World War I soldier was somebody from your birth family side that was coming to check on you?
It could very well be. I really have no way of tying whoever this was to the house, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because of the 1800s and it being in the family, they would know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and my grandparents owned this farm. My mother's parents owned this farm for a while, and then my mom and my dad bought it, and then we lived there for a while. But my dad's parents also lived in a small farmhouse just down the road from us. But my grandfather's sister, my Aunt Felicia, my great Aunt Felicia, she died in that house as well. I remember this happening. I remember the Ghostbusters ambulance pulling into the driveway, and all. My sister and my brother and I all had to come out of the house because Aunt Felicia wasn't well, is what my mother said. Ambulance is coming because Aunt Felicia's not well, and Aunt Felicia had actually died in the house. I found that out later on, but yeah. So I had some history. Well, that's some family history, but not much.
Yeah. So I mean, I'll be honest with you. When you're talking about the soldier, I was getting family vibes off of it.
Yeah, it may be family, but I could never tie it.
I don't think from the adopted family. I think from your birth family, your blood family.
It may be, perhaps. I was born in an area that was several hours away from where I grew up.
That's distance is nothing for a spirit.
Yeah, I know that. I totally agree. I'm saying there's anything's possible, really. Anything is possible when it comes to the house.
Yeah. And here's the reason why, because this goes into the creature to crawl into the window. So right. If I'm going to run with the theory, and just, I think you may agree with me in a second. The World War I soldier, I think, is coming from your blood family. I think it's somebody that was there to check on you, that was part of the family and knew about your situation and was there to overwatch you. Now then, this creature that crawls through the window, as it crawls through, the first thing that it was wearing, and you want to say it's a uniform. So in
Right.
your kid's mind eye, a uniform, it may have been trying to imitate the World War One soldier.
Yeah, I have that's the corner I sit in. I believe that's what it was doing.
Which ties it into being a comforting thing, because the rest of it changes into a clown. You know, clown
Yeah.
fear didn't really kick in until later on in life when they started making horror movies about him.
No, but the Fred Flintstone with dark eyes terrified me.
Well,
It
that would. I'm
terrified
not gonna
me.
lie. Fred Flintstone walking in my house would terrify me. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I'd be more afraid of Fred Flintstone than I would the clown. And
Yeah.
then Mickey Mouse too.
Oh yeah. And what's interesting is this is when I went to school, I can remember a kid in my kindergarten class coloring Fred Flintstone coloring pages and coloring Fred Flintstone's eyes with a black crayon, and me being freaked out by it, being upset by it. I can remember that happening.
Man,
So
Doc,
yeah, the Fred Flintstone thing has stuck with me for a while. That one really creeped me out. The clown wasn't anything, the Mickey Mouse, but that Fred Flintstone really stuck with me.
Well, let me. So when you said to it as well, I still see you.
I still see you.
What?
I don't know.
What inspired you to say that?
The eyes. I knew it was the same thing that come up through the. It was almost like you were saying. It was. I felt like I was. In retrospect, I feel like it was trying to lure me.
Right.
I don't know. And it was trying to lure me with something a kid would like. Clowns. And maybe tapped into something in my room and Fred Flintstone. And, there's no telling.
Yeah, because I'm picturing in my mind
especially an energetic and any kind of energetic being, whatever, they can tap into that stuff. And very easily, especially if you're a vulnerable little kid, they can tap into that stuff. We're fleshy at that age. You know what I mean?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, we're fleshy and we're impressionable and
and our pineal gland is, it's wide open. It's it's clean. It's untainted.
100% right. It's got a lot. It sounds like It. Stephen King's It.
I have it feelings from that. Yeah, that movie is not, that book terrified me, but the movie is not my favorite.
I understand it. Yeah.
But that was an interesting creature I don't know what it was, but in here in the last 10 years or so, I've done a lot more digging into vampiric energy type creatures and that kind of stuff. And rake, I think, falls into that category.
Yeah,
and that's what I think this thing leads to. When I see pictures of a rake, again, it's not exactly what I saw, but it's similar to what I saw. If somebody's has an illustration or a descriptive drawing of what they witnessed, I've seen some that are similar to when I use the word rake. Now, it's not like a garden rake, it's,
in his first stage though, crawling to the window, it was pale skin, correct?
It was what?
Pale, the skin on it was pale, the fingers.
Oh yeah. It was pale, kind of a slick, shiny. And, you could see that the way its, skin and flesh were taut to its body. It was very lean. It was a very lean creature. I can't describe it. It's like something out of a comic book.
Man, this has got a whole bunch of things screaming at me at it, honestly. Wow. Except for the changing thing though. That's what.
Yeah, that still disturbs me.
It
disturbs me.
It disturbs me, and I didn't go through it. It disturbs me for you as well.
Yeah, and that is like as I've mentioned it, this is my truth. These are the things that I've seen, and I've seen other wild things, over the course of my years, but that I was 3, maybe 4 years old, and I will never forget that.
No.
And it wasn't a dream. I knew the difference between being asleep and being awake. I knew those things. And my parents are very, pragmatic. They were, my mother is a sensitive. She didn't know it, but my mother is very empathic. And, as far as anything like that, there wasn't time for that. They went through the Depression and World War II, and my grandfather was wounded at Normandy, and my grandmother received a telegram that he'd been killed or was missing, so they went through like real trauma, And so my mom didn't have time for things like that. It just wasn't. I mean, it wasn't. They did the best they could. I'm not taking anything away from my folks, but they just wasn't time for that. They didn't have the. There really is such a thing as cognitive dissonance. Some things are just too big for people.
No, you're
And
right.
and it's so you have to let my folks were they did the best they could, and it is what it is.
I could actually do a show, I think, and you just kind of hit some really strong points, and I'll get distracted just for a quick second. But if you look at the belief systems of the world during the 1800s, there's a huge change that takes place in the early 1900s,
Oh
and
yeah,
to where the
absolutely.
spiritual world went away. And I think that we got, I was listening to someone today, and they were talking about a reset that could have taken place in the late 1800s, early 1900s time frame.
Yeah.
And if you look at some of the history, and like I could ramble on for that one for days, because you're not the first person I've heard to say that generation. This is and they got away from a lot of that.
Yeah,
They
they had to. They
yeah
were dealing with life on life, life or death situations just at home. Hunger is a big thing.
yeah exactly
Yeah,
100%
and
right.
yeah, and my and again, my dad's side of the family, they were farmers. My dad was the child of farmers who were children of farmers, who were children of farmers, and I followed my lineage back. My father's family. They were farmers from whatever was it early Prusso German area. They came here to escape religious persecution, and they came to the United States as indentured servants, and that's slavery is what that is.
Yeah.
And but my family were predominantly farmers, and I was able to follow my lineage back to the 1600s on my father's side of the family. It's interesting, but there is such a thing as DNA trauma. There's such a thing, and I think I was fortunate being adopted. I didn't get that DNA trauma that I say my cousins that were blood related did get.
Yeah, I get
But
that.
yeah. So pragmatic, and so I just we lived at this farm for till I was about 4. My dad's health got bad, so we sold that farm, and then we bought my grandparents' place in another town, and it was more of a hobby farm. It wasn't a working dairy. We had a dozen cows, a horse or two, geese. I raised guinea pigs, rabbits, chickens, all that kind of stuff. And again, back to the farm living type of deal. And grew up playing Daniel Boone in the woods. I played by myself. I was the youngest in my family. I had a friend across the street, and just depending on what time of the day it was, whether or not he and I were buddies or not, so I played a lot by myself. And so I was comfortable tracking rabbits and playing Daniel Boone, as I said, making spears and bow and arrows. And I grew up just the way a lot of kids grew up, outdoors. And I ended up when I was around 11 years old. Well, the summer before, I'll preface it with, we had a situation around 1980, I'm going to say. We had, as I said, just a few cows, maybe a dozen. Usually we raised heifers for beef or a milk cow or two maybe, but most of it was freezer beef, or we raised heifers and sold them at the sale or whatever. But we had a couple of small pastures, and they were fenced. Down the center that separated the two pastures was a tree line and a barbed wire fence. And then to the left of the barn and to the right of the barn, it was either barbed wire on the right or one single strand of electric fence on the left. And we had something that kept harassing our cows, and they chased the cows. They got out, but we would hear something harassing the cattle, and we would go down with our flashlights and we wouldn't see anything, but we figured it was just, we have a lot of coy dogs up there, which are coyote dog hybrids. There's a lot of coyotes, a lot of coy dogs up there, and we just figured the coy dogs were running the cow, so no big deal. And then we had a calf come up missing at one point, and I can remember we found the calf in the woods, off the pasture ways, but it's the calf's head had been torn off its body. It had a couple of broken legs in the back. I remember at least one broken leg anyway. And that was very bizarre and traumatic. And my parents wrote it off as dog attack. But whatever it was that killed this calf, twisted the calf's head right off of its neck, like just tore it off. Whatever did it had tremendous strength. You could tell that this had been, there's a lot of, I don't know if you've been around any cattle, but
yeah,
even small calves, around their neck is a meaty part of their body, and this.
It takes a lot to decapitate and rip the head off of an animal.
Yeah, it takes a lot. Yeah, and it did. I remember that. That was very bizarre. Again, our parents attributed it to dogs, wild dogs, and we left it at that. One of my geese came up missing, and we found it stuck up in a tree somewhere, and it looked like it had been chewed on a little bit. And but they said owl, but these were big white geese. I can't see an owl or a hawk or anything like that getting after my geese. And then I started having my guinea pigs and rabbits were coming up missing, and I had hutches for those that had little locks on them that you'd have to have fingers to get them open, but something was getting in there and taking my guinea pigs and rabbits and would eat them. And then we would later on in the season, a couple of weeks or whatever later, would start smelling, especially in the summertime, smell something dying, and it'd be a guinea pig on top of the barn, because the barn was a kind of a lean-to type barn. It was fully enclosed, but it was built like at one end it was maybe 6 foot in height, and at the other end it was 11 foot in height. So it had kind of a lean, roof on it. And I found one of my guinea pigs. It was a little black and white guinea pig up on the barn. It had been chewed on a little bit. The legs had all been chewed off, and then it was just left there. And then I found one in a weeping willow tree by the barn. It's just weird things like that, And of course, you can attribute that to other predators, whatever. But something was getting in the hutches, and it was upsetting me because I told my parents it's upsetting me. Something's killing my animals, and they kind of attributed it to maybe some of the kids. I mean, I lived on a dead end road, and we had neighbor kids, and most of them were related to me, but she would attribute it, maybe the kids were just playing pranks on me, but they were killing my animals, and it's kind of it was upsetting me.
Yeah, that's pretty, I don't know, gruesome prank.
Yeah, it's kind of gruesome. So again, we had our cattle, our cows were chased off, and we had about 8 of them then, I think, and we were able to find all but 2, I think, 1 or 2 of them. We weren't able to find, and so it was my older brother, one of his friends. No, it was my older brother, 2 of his friends, myself, and 2 of my friends, which were cousins. We went down in the woods with baling twine to look for these cows. And when we would find the cows, we would make halters out of baling twine. Farm kids know what I'm talking about. And then we would haul them back up and put them back in the pasture, in the barn, whatever. And then we'd go back down. We would do this in pairs. And we had found all but 1, I think. And my brother and my brother's friend, they went off into the woods to look for the cow. They went off in the area of the woods we hadn't looked yet. And so it was me and another buddy. We're sitting there waiting. And we hear this racket, and we hear my brother and his friend running through the trees, and you can hear the branches snapping, and then you could see them coming through the woods, covering their face and running through the briars or whatever. And my nickname growing up was Charlie. My older brother named me Charlie. When I was a little kid, I looked like Charlie Brown. I had real light blonde hair, so I kind of looked like Charlie Brown. And so he nicknamed me Charlie when I was very little, and it stuck. And my brother was like my hero to me. And when he he yelled, "Charlie, run," when they were running through the woods. So we hopped up and we ran up the hill and to the barn. And we got up there and we're all out of breath. And my brother's friends started saying, "Weaver, what are we running from?" And my brother's like, we saw monkey people and one of them chased us. That's how he described them, big monkey people. So his friends started harassing him, and my brother kind of, he had a smile on his face, but he was not happy. And my brother would not talk about it. I just lost my brother this past summer, but my brother would not talk about Bigfoot. He would talk to me about it, but he didn't like me mentioning it in front of other people. To him, anyways, he didn't like it. But so we had that happen, and then the following summer, so we're going into like 1981, I figure, and it's berry picking season. And so I have a cousin that has my mother's brother. My uncle married this kid's mother. So he's like my step cousin, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And they had just gotten married and they built a house there or had a house there. And so he and I became buddies, and he was a couple years younger than me. He was around 9. And he had blonde curly hair and thick Coke bottle, Coke bottom, whatever they call them, bottle bottom glasses, real thick glasses. And he would talk about being a black belt when he was like in the 2nd grade, just a little tough kid. And
too many ninja movies.
He and I became good buddies, and we decided we're going to go down and we're going to pick berries. So we get these parquet margarine bowls from our parents, from our mothers, and we run down. And normally we would go down we lived on a dead end road, but the road continued. It was more of a tractor road. And then you could veer off of that tractor road on another little pathway that we used for hauling. We used to harvest firewood and that kind of stuff. And this this road would take you up into this little meadow. And my grandfather had planted domesticated blackberries and raspberries out there. So there's a great big, huge blackberry thicket out there and a raspberry thicket. And so Jerry and I decided we're going to run down. We're going to go have a berry picking contest, see who can pick the most berries. And so we ran down the other way. We went down a way that this is kind of integral to the story, but we went down a way we normally wouldn't travel to get down to this meadow because we were just in a hurry. And there was a pump house down there. We had a spring down there, and it was a freshwater spring. So they pumped all the water up to our houses, and there's 3 or 4 houses that got water from that well. And so we had power running to there. So my uncles and my dad had basically did a cutaway. So for the power poles, because we ran power above the snow line and that kind of thing. And so there was a clear passageway straight to this meadow. So that's the way we decided to go to the meadow. We end up on the backside of the meadow, and we're picking berries. And if you've ever gone berry picking, the berries will grow out. They kind of grow out, and then they kind of cove in or crop in, and then they crop out again. And
yeah.
And so Jerry is picking on one of these outcroppings of berries. He's on my left, and it's outcropped, and then it kind of coves in, and then it outcrops again. So there's a little gap between he and I as we're picking. And again, he's to my left. So we're picking and, eating berries and throwing them in our bowl. And I always tell the story that, as kids, it's usually 1 in the mouth or 2 in the mouth, 1 in the bowl, 2 in the mouth, 1 in the bowl, because you're eating and you're picking. And when you're picking blackberries, you'll see a little cluster of berries, and you got to watch out for the briar. So you got to stick your hand through there, and you just pull down on the berries. But it was a cluster of 5 berries. 3 of them were ripe. So you're going to feel 3 of them landing in your hand. But you're already eyeballing the next cluster because you got to maneuver your way to it. You want to know where you're going to get the next berries. So we're kind of fast picking, and we're being careful, but we're having fun doing it. Jerry saw the thing first, and he kind of went into a bit of a meltdown where he started going, "I want to go home. I want to go home. I want to go home." And he got real weepy, and I remember his face, and he just got scared and dropped his berry bowl, and He ran past me and caught the trail back to the tractor road, and he went back up the way he didn't go back up. He didn't go up the way we came down. He went up the regular way that we would normally come down. So he ran home, and I thought, I hardly knew the kid really. So I was like, that's a weird kid. More berries for me, that kind of thing. So I'm going along and I'm picking the berries and I'm eating, and I don't know how long time passed. I'm going to figure maybe 15 to 30 minutes had passed. And as I'm picking, I hear a loud whistle to my right, and it's coming from the area that Jerry had just ran. And it's a real loud, I'm a terrible whistler, but it's like, but it's really loud, but it goes. So I hear the whistle and I stop picking, and I said something like, knock it off, Jerry. I know that's you, or, something like that. And I go back to picking berries. Well, I spot a cluster, and as I'm reaching my hand into this berry thicket, I hear this whistle again. So I turn my head, and as I turn my head and I'm reaching the thicket, I touch hair, and it spooked me. I felt hair, and I've done a lot of berry picking at this point, and I've touched all sorts of things in berry thickets. I've put my hands into bird nests. I've touched snakes that are sunning themselves on the vines, and which is real creepy when you touch one of those. But I had never touched hair before, so as soon as I touched the hair and I felt it, I immediately pulled my hand back and I stepped back from the bush, and I'm anywhere from, it's a guess, 6 to 10 feet away from the bush, 6 to 8 feet, something like that. And I see this black figure in the thicket, and he's in the crop. He's in where it cropped in. He's kind of in and to the right as I'm looking at it. And I start leaning to my left because I'm trying to get a look at this thing, and I can't really discern what it is. It's just a black kind of shape there. And I'm like, what is that? Is that a dog? Is that a deer? I'm thinking, I don't know what it is. I can't distinguish any kind of shape. And it's big. It's big. And I happen to glance down, and I can see what now is, I could see it's where his calf muscle and his thigh muscle are squeezed together. This thing was squatted down, and it had its arms between its legs, but I haven't figured this part out yet. So I see this mass, and I happen to look down, and I see the 3 outside toes on its right foot. And I'm like, they look like human toes, people toes. They look like people toes. And then I see the ankle bone, and I see that where the calf and the thigh are squeezed together, and I'm starting to figure out what it is that I'm seeing. I see this massive shoulder and this big wrinkled, I don't know what you want to call it, no neck, just like a big muscle there, and the back of its head and the back of its right ear. That's all I can see. But as I said, every time I would lean to the left, this thing would push himself or itself into the bush, so I couldn't see it. Couldn't really figure out what it was. It was almost as if it was hiding its face from me. But when I saw what it was, and I knew what it was because I had seen the Patterson-Gimlin film on Leonard Nimoy's In Search Of. So I knew what a Bigfoot was. And I knew that's what I saw. And when I made the acknowledgement that it was what I saw on television, that it was a Bigfoot, I immediately went into a kind of a panic. All the wind left my body, and I couldn't breathe. It was like when you're in a dream and you're trying to scream and you can't. I was like, oh, I couldn't make a sound. I wet my pants, and I just shook, and I couldn't move. And I don't know how long I stood there, a few seconds. I really don't know, but my fight or flight kicked in. I dropped my bowl, and I ran home. My mother was home. My dad was at work. And I told my mother what I saw, and she knew I was upset, but she's like, "Oh, it's just you probably saw a dog or a deer." And I'm like, "No, I saw a monster. I saw a Bigfoot." And so my dad came home, and I was still very, very much shook and upset. And again, my parents did the best they could, but I didn't get the comfort I needed, really. And the nightmare started. I would wake up scared, sweating, screaming, about Bigfoot. And the actual encounter, or the actual exchange, whatever it was that happened, was not. It was not threatening to me. It wasn't sinister. It wasn't. In fact, I kind of, in retrospect, I feel like it was the exact opposite. It was almost like it was hiding its face to keep from scaring me, honestly. But I like to think that's what gives me some comfort. But in my dream, in my nightmare, I have a PTSD like residual night terror, nightmare, whatever you want to call it. But in that thing, he's like a silverback gorilla. He has big long canines, and they're bloody, and he's coming out of the woods between my house and my grandmother's house, and it wants to eat me. And so it's a totally, again, my little 11-year-old psyche couldn't wrap my head around what truly was happening. I was more latched on to the fact that, as I said prior to us starting this interview, it's like finding out King Kong's in your backyard. It was overwhelming.
Wow.
All of my country boy fun went out the fucking door.
Yeah.
And I stopped going in the woods. I stopped hunting. I stopped fishing. I used to fish for frogs, get a little minnow hooks and put a red berry on it or red thread and just go around the edge of ponds and dangle it in front of big, huge bullfrogs. And I loved frog legs as a kid. And that's what I did. And all of that stopped. And that happened in the summer of 81, I think. And my dad died the following summer. And I mean, I had nightmares. I was terrified that entire year, but we harvested firewood out of that. We cut wood. We burned wood, but my dad also sold wood. And so we were in the woods all the time. And my dad would say, "Come on, we're going to the woods." And I would immediately start putting up fits where my dad would get furious with me because I didn't want to go to the woods because I knew what was down there. And, during this time, my brother is older than me. He was 6 years older than me. And one time we were cutting trees, and he dropped a tree and it fell down on me, but it was the very top of it. It just kind of knocked me over. It didn't hurt me or anything, but my dad was really upset with my brother about that. And I think my dad just kind of thought that maybe I had that fear because he would let me stand by the truck, or I would actually get under the truck. Like I had some kind of, some sense of protection under the truck, but I would get under the truck, and when they would drop trees, my brother and my dad would cut all the limbs off, because we'd cut cordwood. And my job was to gather up those limbs and pile them up in a brush pile. We'd burn them in the spring. But I would run out from the truck and throw these branches, terrified, throw these branches in a pile and then run back to the truck. So this is how I would have to navigate my life from that encounter till the following summer when my dad died. When my dad died, the wood harvesting stopped, the farming stopped, a lot of that stopped. My mother went back to work, and I was my brother was already out of the house at that point, and my sister was a senior in high school and my dad died, and so I was kind of the man of the house. I had to let go of silly things, so to speak. So I had to grow up kind of quickly, but the nightmare was there, but I had to just kind of, self-soothe and deal with it on my own. And that grew into my high school years and then college. And that's when I discovered that, drugs and alcohol would soothe the dreaming. If I smoked pot or I drank, I wouldn't dream. And if I didn't dream, I wouldn't have these problems. And not realizing that what I had wasn't really it's a problem, but I'm a sensitive. I see things, I didn't really know that until just, in my adult years, what was going on. But, my life kind of changed, and I'm not blaming Bigfoot for my adult problems, but how I process things emotionally was deeply impacted by this encounter with Bigfoot. And I had to navigate my way through all of that. And, it got kind of messy. I've been married and divorced 3 times, and, it's played an integral part in all of my relationships as far as how I deal with things on an emotional level. I would just shut down or do drugs or drink to appease the situation. And, that was effective for a while until it wasn't, when life becomes unmanageable, and so I had to step away, and, I discovered a life of recovery, and got a foundation in that for a few years, and, started learning how to face my fears and live my dreams, so to speak. And I took on this kind of confront all bullies, confront all monsters. And so I kind of took on that kind of mindset after I was around 40 years old, I guess. I had my youngest son was in a church program. They were practicing at the church one night, and I was sitting in a pew in the sanctuary, and in the back pew, just watching my son do what he was doing. And these 2 old guys were standing behind me. 2 seniors were talking, and one of them was a retired park employee. He was like a meet and greeter or whatever. And he said to the other one, "Oh, did you hear somebody said they saw a Bigfoot up at Indian Boundary Campground, which is a campground in the Cherokee National Forest in East Tennessee, in the area where I lived." And just overhearing the conversation, I couldn't help but hear them. They were standing right behind me, but it kind of triggered something in my psyche. So I in my adult life at 40 years old, I started having these nightmares again, and it pissed me off. I got quite angry about it and decided to confront it. And my wife at the time, that was my 3rd wife, she and I were in intense couples therapy at the time. And when I say intense, it was one of these situations where I would go 1 day a week, she would go 1 day a week, and then we would go 1 day a week, every week. This is how it was, And in one of my individual sessions with our therapist, I had the nightmare a couple of days prior to this, and when I have them, they stick with me for a couple of days. They're very they just linger. The fear is still there. And so it used to knock me out. I haven't had one in several years, thank goodness. But it kind of knocked me for a loop. So I happened to be in this individual session with this couples therapist, and I said, "Hey man, I got to talk to you about something that has absolutely nothing to do with my marriage." And he's like, "Okay, shoot, we can do that." So I began to unload this story that I just told you about, this encounter as a child. And he was very, very cool about it. He didn't look at me like I needed therapy, or he didn't prescribe me medicine or anything like that. He encouraged me to maybe see if I could find people that had, maybe some similar encounters, or could give me something to talk with, someone to talk to. And so at 40 years old, I went online and I Googled Bigfoot for the first time. And that led to, I had gotten onto Facebook at that point. So this is around 2009, I guess. And, I got onto Facebook and found some Facebook groups that were subject related. And then since then, it's just been a wild, wild ride.
That was a wild ride. Holy cow.
Yeah. It pretty intense. Pretty intense.
Extremely intense. I mean, Doc, I'm sorry you went through that, and because one of the questions I was going to ask you was, was the last time you had a nightmare, and I'm glad it's been some years, and hopefully, this isn't a spur one tonight for you.
No, well, see what I've learned. One of the things I learned in recovery is that when you're bottled up with stuff, the best thing you can do is talk about it. That's what's great about if you've been to an NA meeting or AA meeting. There's a fellowship there where you feel comfortable in sharing with that. And through this process, I was able to find a core group of people that really understood what I was going through and help me. And and again, these are guys that I'd go camping with, and we would go out there I started camping again as an adult. And then eventually I would solo camp with my dog, but I would solo camp. I solo camped at Salt Fork for the Ohio Bigfoot Conference, and it was a blast. But I'm still a head on the swivel sort of guy, but I've come a long way with it to where I've had some pretty cool things happen. I've had the pleasure of camping with Bob Gimlin, which is super cool. Got to meet him, became good friends with him, and it's nice to sit down and talk with Bob Gimlin about his encounter from a situation that is from a perspective of where it's not just about the film. It was just nice to talk with him about the things that happened, the days leading up to and after. And, because Bob if you know anything about Bob's story, he went through quite an ordeal with it. It wasn't all fun and games.
No, they both went through a lot of, ridicule, being made fun of, a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. And that was great about when I met Bob. It's funny how I met him. I did this deal where I decided that I was going to go to the Ohio Bigfoot Conference the second time, and I'd made everybody has kind of like their Bigfoot hustle or whatever you want to call it, and I made these little Bigfoot yin yang decals, and it's a yin yang with a Bigfoot in each side of the yin yang. Pretty cool. And I was on Facebook at the time, and I did this Help a Hippie Get to the Ohio Bigfoot Conference campaign where I would sell these decals for $5 a piece. And for everyone that you bought, I would put your name in a drawing, and I did a live drawing at the Bigfoot conference, and the winner got a bag of swag from the conference. So I printed 60 of those. I sold 60 of those in about 10 days, I think. And that made my camping money and all of that. And I printed another 60 of them and took them up with me. And I ended up coming home with, I think, 3 of them. I sold just about every single one of them. But so that got me to the Ohio Bigfoot Conference. And so I have the opportunity. I get to meet Bob Gimler. I want to. So have you been there? Have you been to the Ohio Bigfoot Conference?
I have not. I'm actually going to the Ohio Bigfoot Jamboree this year in October.
Oh yeah, awesome. Yeah, well the Ohio, when they did the Ohio Bigfoot Conference, what they do is, when they have a speaker, they'll do the speaker will do his presentation, and then, they'll break, and everybody's got their tables, vendors and that kind of stuff. And you can do meet and greets. You get to meet Bob and whoever else is speaking. So I stood in line for forever. And then just at the point where I'm probably 10 people away from Bob, the tables close up because they got to go back in and do another conference or another presentation or whatever. So the table shut down. So I didn't get to meet Tom or get to meet Bob, but Tom Yamarone. Are you familiar with Tom Yamarone?
Yes.
Yeah. Tom was Bob's handler or helper at that point. And I saw Tom that evening, and he's like, "Hey, buddy, did you get to meet Bob?" And I'm like, "No, I tried to." I said, "Man, the lines are long." I said, "I got close, but I was never able to meet him." He's like, "Well, hey, you want to go to breakfast with us in the morning?" I'm like, "Well, yeah." So, we got a little, I ain't gonna lie, I'm not a big drinker anymore. Like I said, I kind of accomplished that, but we toasted a few that night and tipped a few.
That's a good reason. That's a good reason to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but I went back to my campsite and with my dog, and that was another thing. I was one of the first to get away with walking a dog around Salt Fork Lodge without getting in any trouble. I think you can get in trouble for that now, but I was able to do it back then, so it was super cool. But I woke up with the bells of Notre Dame in my head. I didn't drink. Normally, I'll drink water if I've been drinking. I'll drink a glass of water before I hit the hay, and I didn't. So I woke up. Breakfast was at I think we were doing breakfast at 9. I woke up at I think 10 till 8 with a pounding headache. So I quickly grab a couple of Tylenol and I stuck down a bottle of water and I lay back down for 30 minutes. By the way, that's a perfect hangover cure. If you wake up with a hangover, take 2 Tylenol, drink a bottle of water, and lay back down for 30 minutes and take a nap. When you wake up, your hangover will be gone. So that's what happened. I was able to keep some breakfast down, but I ended up going to breakfast and hooking up with Tom and Bob. And Bob and I talked about everything but Bigfoot. We talked about breaking horses and Johnny Cash and Yakima apples and everything. And he and I exchanged Christmas cards for a couple of years, but we kind of lost touch with each other after I got kicked off of Facebook and that kind of thing. But yeah, it's as I mentioned to you earlier, Bigfoot has been an incredible connector for me. And just when I started talking about my encounter, life just kind of fell into place. It was just very interesting. I started feeling, all right with my skin. I started realizing, hey, there's a lot of people out there that don't think I'm crazy or in a shithouse rat, which I may be. But when it comes to the Bigfoot, I was an 11-year-old kid. I wasn't eating fermented berries. I clearly knew what I saw. But, I went so long without talking about it. And when I finally did start talking about it, I started getting to meet all these really cool people. And I started realizing that, all these people have an affinity for the same thing I do. And so it's pretty incredible.
No, I'm with you 100%. It's one, your encounter is extremely incredible. And I've got some theories. And I actually put the pen down there for a while because I had goosebumps.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get them every time I tell it.
Yeah, well, I can see why. Yeah. So here's the thing. So when Jerry took off running, right?
Right.
Okay, he said it was done. He threw down his pail and he took off running.
Yep.
Right? Okay, and then you started hearing whistles.
Right.
And the whistles are coming from the direction that he ran.
Right.
Okay, so and then you saw the creature in the bushes with you.
Right.
So I think that the feeling that you got, you might have been zapped with infrasound.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
Because everything you described,
I used to describe it as an accordion squeeze. It felt like I was being squeezed.
Yeah, everything you describe,
yeah,
is very similar. Is like the infrasound, like being zapped. I think there was another one there, and I think you and Jerry walked up. It just happened to be at the right place at the right time when one was picking berries and another one was looking out and didn't get the warning out in time.
Right. That's exactly. I feel like I ran through it a gazillion times. Clearly I have.
Did you ask Jerry what he saw?
Yeah, we talked about it later on in life. We talked about it. It was too traumatic to talk about at that point. As far as kids just didn't talk about that kind of stuff. Not to each other. But we talked about it when we were in high school. He was a couple years younger than me, so I really wished I could have had an opportunity to speak to him. Jerry died a few years ago. Jerry really didn't. He really wasn't. He struggled in life. He struggled a lot, and I can't say that the Bigfoot encounter didn't have some kind of impact on him. I think it may have. I know what it did to me, so I don't know what it may have done to him. But he struggled a lot with his own demons, and we lost him a few years ago. But when he and I talked about it, the one time we talked about it in high school, he and I talked about it, and we both acknowledged that we saw what we saw, and that was it. We never just wasn't something we wanted to talk about to each other.
I understand that. I was curious. Did he see it in the bushes or did he see a different one?
No, I think he saw the same one I did because his angle of vision, or where his perspective was right where it was squatted when I saw it. I happened to shift around the bush and see him.
Okay.
But when I touched him, I pulled my hand, I stepped backwards, and then I kind of stepped to my left and was like leaning to my left to try to get a look at it. And as I mentioned earlier, when I would look at it, as I would lean to get a good eye on it, he would shove himself into the thicket, or I say he, it, she.
Yeah.
And it was big. I mean, it wasn't, I'm not saying it was, I saw massive muscles, but it was built like, Akeem Olajuwon. If you remember how he was built,
Yeah.
he's built like that, lean muscle, skin color. His feet were a different color than the rest of his skin. I remember that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what color was his feet.
His feet, when I saw when I saw the three outside toes on his foot, I saw it looked like a chimp's foot. How a chimp, like how the hair hangs over, and then it's like a pad,
Yeah.
like the Osman pad. It's kind of a yellowish kind of color, you know.
Yeah.
It was like that, but the rest of his skin wasn't. If I remember correctly, it was kind of a light gray color, a coal, you know, like a gorilla, like the color of a gorilla. Same kind of shimmer and everything.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and it was like I said, it was lean. He wasn't bulky. He was lean. He was built like a a big basketball player.
Yeah, I mean, I'm picturing it. I mean, what you described in my head, and
And
I'm really thinking you got zapped. I'm thinking the one they zapped you to get you away.
well, it's interesting that you mentioned that because a few years ago in 2000, the year I told you that Bob Gillen came down and camped with us in Georgia, camp out, the last day of camp out, I'll just go ahead and tell you, my dog that I had at the time, we lived 2 hours away from where we camped, so it was a 2 hour drive home. So what I would do on Sunday, we would camp usually Thursday to Sunday. I'd break down my camping and pack it up, and then before we hit the road, I'd usually go hit the trail with Cash. And Cash, he would either walk on the leash or roam on his own, but he was a real good dog. And he'd go do his business because Cash loved to travel, but he didn't like to ride. So as soon as he got in the van or SUV, whatever I was driving, he would lay down, and he wouldn't get in the passenger seat and watch or anything like that. He wanted to lay down and stay down. So I wanted him comfortable. So we were walking up this trail that, a couple of nights earlier, a group of us had an encounter with some eye shine that is written about in a book by a guy. Oh, dang it. His first name's Keith. It's called Forest Friends of the Night, I think is the book. And I'm sorry, I can't remember Keith's last name. It escapes me right now.
That's
And
okay.
he's probably gonna shoot me because I don't remember.
What's funny is that it'll
Sorry,
be like
Keith.
1 o'clock in the morning. You'll set up and go, "That's his name."
Yeah, Keith something or other. But the book is called Forest Friends of the Night, where we had this unusual encounter with the silhouette of a big, and we watched the eyes turn colors from a white to an amber orange. It's very interesting. But this was the same
That'd be neat to
trail that
see.
yeah, this is the same trail that this happened at on that had happened, but it was in the daytime. And the way I describe it is I was walking up this trail, and it's a little bit rocky, but how it's set up is, if you look to your right, it's kind of slopes down. There's a creek, and then it goes back up. It slopes back up, and there's trees everywhere. But there's down trees, and there's old growth and dead trees and that kind of thing. So I'm walking up the trail, and my dog is doing his thing, and he's right next to me. And I keep seeing this black shape darting from tree to tree. And I thought at the time, I thought it was a crow. I was seeing a crow. And I would look and not see anything. And I kept thinking it was a crow. And then finally I caught a glimpse of it and realized what it was. And it was not a crow. It was a being of some type, but it was something that was on two legs. It was something on the ground. It wasn't flying. It was on the ground. And so I see this thing, and I see the top of its head, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm gonna walk. I'm gonna act like I'm walking, but I'm gonna stop and look at it real quick. So I had this thought, but I'm like, come on, Cash, let's go. And I go to make a step, and I look and I see it duck down. Now all I see now is a very tip of its top of its crown or its head. Still don't know what it is, but I can see it. And when it ducked down, under my breath, I said, I'll clean it up. I forget that I don't know who's going to hear this. I've already dropped a couple of F-bombs, so I
Actually, you've
apologize.
only dropped one, so
Okay.
you're doing good. You're doing good.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, as long as it's
Uh,
not a, I mean, yeah, like one slip and one in is okay because as long as
yeah,
YouTube won't catch it, unless there's a lot. I mean, there's an
right.
AI program that scans through, but it flowed really good when you dropped it, so don't I'm not worried about it.
Okay, good. Yeah, I'm pretty flowy when it comes to it. So, but so when I see this happen under my breath, I say to myself, I say, no effing way. So as soon as I say this, I start hearing this sound in my head. It's the only way I can describe it, the sound in my head, and it's my voice. And it's going, no, 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 no. And it's going to the same rhythm as my heart. Okay. So just as that I'm hearing this, I hear this tone in my head. I hear it split into two tones. So now I hear two of them in two different tones. And I'm a musician, so I'm hearing these tones and I'm going, oh wow. And I'm just standing there and I'm looking at my dog and these two tones in my head turn into four tones and it's my voice in different octaves going no, no. And as I'm hearing this, my body is vibrating and I'm at the point where I'm shaking uncontrollably in place where I'm standing. My teeth are vibrating together. My teeth are chattering like I'm freezing. And I can't move. And in my head, I'm hearing this no, no, no. And it's like Gregorian chants now. It's like 8, 12, 14 different octaves or notes. I'm hearing squirrely little news in the background. And it's just, I'm flooded with this sound in my head. And then, like a switch, it just stops. My body stops shaking. I felt nauseated and I felt terrified. And so I look at my dog and I'm like, come on, Cash. And I snap his leash on his collar and I make a mad dash down the hiking trail, get to my vehicle. I drive home. It's a 2-hour drive. I don't remember the drive at all. I'm just kind of like in a fuzz. And I end up getting home and after a couple of days, we had showers where we camp, but while I'm showering, it's pointed out that I've got a couple of ticks on me, so we get the ticks off me. And my dog had several ticks on him, so we could do the whole tick thing. But I still don't feel right. I don't feel right, and the only way I describe it is it felt as if my body felt like I had been taken apart on a molecular level and then put back together, and either something was missing or something was extra, but something wasn't the way it was prior to this experience. And I don't know if I told you I had grit in my teeth, like I had been chewing on sand from my
No,
teeth.
yeah.
My teeth were vibrating so fast that I chipped them. I had little bits of grit in my mouth from where my teeth had chipped, vibrating together. I felt kind of ill for days and then weeks. I ended up thinking I had Lyme disease. And I went to the doctor and the doctor's like, we don't have Lyme disease in Georgia, which I think is a lie, but anyway, okay. But, so I just ended up, and ultimately, I mean, here we are 7 years later, right? So almost 8 years later now. And, it became my normal, how I felt. I still don't feel the same way. It never changed. I still feel that same way. I've been ill since then. I've been sick a couple of years here and there, but or a couple of times over the years. But so I'm going to fast forward about I don't know 3 weeks after this, and I'm kind of gotten back to a somewhat normal routine. I was in climbing equipment sales, ladder and scaffolding sales at the time, and so I'm heading to work, and I'm sitting at a stoplight, and I'm on it's a 4-lane highway, but it's 2 lanes on, going different directions, and they're each, whatever. And so I'm sitting at this light at a major intersection and feeling good. I'm on time. I got my coffee, sunshine, I got my sunglasses on, no big deal. And out of the blue, I get hit with this wave of grief. like just a wave of grief just came over me. Like I felt like crying. I wasn't listening to anything, emotional or anything on the radio or anything like that. And I have tears coming out of my eyes. Just feel like bawling like a baby. And so I take my glasses off and I rub my eyes and I look around because I'm kind of embarrassed. I don't want anybody to see me crying at the door, at the, stoplight.
Yeah.
I look over to my right, and sitting in the car next to me, parked at the stoplight, in the car next to me, is this young 20-something-year-old girl. And she's just bawling like, her grandmother died or whatever. Her father broke, or her boyfriend broke up with her, or father died, whatever. And when I saw her and saw her grief, the same no feeling that I had happened again immediately. The same wong type deal. And my sensitivities or whatever, my empathic senses or whatever, have been on like fucking overload. Pardon me, have been on overload for the last 7-8 years. It's been weird.
That's crazy. I mean,
now that I believe was infrasound.
Well, okay, so let me go to that one real quick. All right.
Yeah.
So, I talked to a guy. So, infrasound. The cool thing about infrasound is I've been kicking around the idea on it. Todd Neese has done a ton of research into it, to where, his first 2 episodes with me, we talked a lot about it. The use of infrasound, what they're doing, how it's trying to work. So the area that we're investigating here in Arkansas, very similar encounter what you just went through. I had a rifle with me. We were exploring to the edge of the property, to where we were staring at somebody else's property, and the guy there with us was like, "Hey, we can't cross over here. This guy's kind of is kind of a prick. He doesn't want us there. Doesn't want anybody over there." And so we're kind of standing there, just kind of looking, and 75 yards. And the only reason why I know it's 75 yards because we had a laser rangefinder with us. There was a little clump of trees. There was like 4 trees right there in this field, and I realized there's something standing in it. In these 3 trees. And I can't see it with my eyes, so I raised the rifle up. I got, I guess, iron sights, and I got a scope on. And I raise it up, and I realize that where the scope's at, there's a branch in front of me. So I rotate back to the iron to try and, adjust my size. Go back to I do this 3 or 4 times before it's gone. But when I saw it, my first response was, WTF. Is that?
Yeah.
And when I said that, the rest of my team was moving in to me. We were we're close. We don't get too far from each other when we go out. They were coming in to try and look. It was just a matter of seconds how quick everything went down. But it was after that I felt weird. I felt, to me, I thought I was being normal. But to the rest of the team, I was not. And it was about an hour and a half, a little over an hour drive home afterward. And the only part of the drive I remember was on our way up. My buddy Tony had saw this yellow Jeep. His wife was wanting to get a yellow Jeep, and it was a lot, on the side of the road. And coming back, I kept thinking I was going to look for this lot so we could get the name of the lot, and that was all I remember. And for a week, I didn't sleep. So we got home. I got, we came out to my place. Everybody, they went home. I got cleaned up. No ticks, no nothing, which shocked me. And didn't eat that well that night. Didn't sleep that well. The next night, didn't sleep at all. I had a nightmare a few days later. And the funny part is about the nightmare that I had, to where Alan, who runs the Nevermore Hollows podcast, me and Alan had the same nightmare at the same time.
Oh, that's interesting.
Except for it ends differently. My nightmare ends for an alligator. We're both in the woods, but we're not together, obviously. and this giant snake comes out of nowhere, like, anaconda size from the movie Anaconda, and starts chasing us through the woods.
Oh, wow.
My dream turned into, there was a house with a moat of all things and an alligator in it, and the alligator attacks the snake.
Oh, wow.
And I get away from it that way. Alan didn't have that part, but the whole premises of the dream being in the woods, and that's what we were doing in the woods, was cryptid hunting. We were looking for cryptids. So, and Alan lives in Tennessee.
Oh, wow. Alan who?
So, well, he runs the Nevermore Hollows podcast.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, but yeah, they're in Cleveland.
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's not far from where Cleveland's not far from east. Well, I live in Sweetwater, Madisonville.
Well, you get a chance, you got to listen to Nevermore Hollows. They do a good job on their story.
I'll definitely check it out.
But so that was the infrasound thing, and it may have, with this infrasound, the government uses it to help, as a nonviolent way of breaking up crowds. Elephants use it to communicate. Whales use it. Tigers use it to paralyze their prey. There's a lot to the infrasound, and I'm really, really, I'm strong on this bandwagon, if you want to call it that, of infrasound being used. And it sounds to me, from your childhood, having, this World War I, entity there, the crazy thing crawling through the window, which I'm going to dig into that.
Yeah, it's been a while, but when I was on the confessionals, I had brought that up then, hoping somebody would grab a hold of it and say, oh, well, yeah, I've had that same thing, or something similar to the, like I said, it felt like
it's got like a changeling feel to it. It's got a changeling feel to it. It has an abduction feel to it. There's a lot of abduction cases out there, that they describe seeing something, and it sounds like, whatever this entity was trying to create an image that you would feel comfortable with.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly. And that's the thing is that, I mean, I can't say for certain, but as a kid, I kind of knew that.
What I want you to do
is why I said, I still see you. I was like, I still see you. And I think I kind of knew that what it was doing.
Listen to the Shadow Stalker episode that I have and A Bump in the Road. The Bump in the Road is John from Miss Monsters and Mullets. He is fairly recent, happened in the month of December. Encounter that he had in the middle of the road with something that sounds similar to what you had. And then the Shadow Stalker, that is my Nalusa one, with Chris, who turned into, started off as an encounter. Now he's on the investigation team.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, great guy. Chris is a really good guy. So I would definitely listen to those. I'm thinking you guys zapped, and you may be more empathetic now. I think everybody has levels of empathy, but I think you may probably, it may have jarred you to where you're more empathetic, to where you're able to pick up. You said you did sales.
Yeah.
So here's my theory on sales. People who do sales are very empathetic.
Absolutely.
If you're any successful at sales, you know when to push the sale, you know when to close the sale, you know when to back off on the sale.
Absolutely.
And that's what a lot of people don't understand is it's not closing the sale. Is when to back off the sale.
Yep. And it's not even the product you're selling; it's you're selling. The
exactly.
product is an afterthought.
Exactly. So know when to back off. Know when to back off on a sale. I've got actually more sales by backing off of the sale. Because I ran sales for a long time as well. Than actually pushing it. And you have to be empathetic. You have to be able to walk in and read a room.
Absolutely. And that's the thing is, if you can. I used to get in trouble. I worked for a brokerage where they would, they had all your calls were monitored and recorded for quality assurance. And
sorry, that was really good.
Thank you. I would get pulled into the office after a call, and the boss would be like, "Why didn't you sell it? Why didn't you close it?" I said, "He's not ready." He says he's got to think about it. He says, "Dude," he says, "you should." He says he wanted first call, first close. One call, one close type of situation. And I'm like, dude, he's gonna close it. He says, nah, he's in the wind, is what he said. He's in the wind. Well, Friday the guy calls up, hey, I want to go ahead and get that policy. And I went into my boss's office. By the way, that guy that's in the wind, he's back. Here you go. I told you he was buying it. There you go.
Yeah, my
But you
favorite.
know,
Yeah, same thing with me. When I did, I was a consultant for Kirby on recruiting and training. They would have me. Yeah, I started off as the guy that goes door to door, and did that for a couple of weeks. Didn't like it, and then I got moved into recruiting and training. We talked a little bit about this as well. And I worked for a guy. I went to a guy's office there in Texas. I'm not going to mention any names or anything, but me and the distributor did not get along. He did not like my style. He was from the old generations of it, and which to me was always felt kind of dirty. And I was more of a guy that would rather do it clean, like we were talking, and honest. So he would always try and show, he would say, well, hey, Matt, you're going to go out and you're going to go jump on this crew today. And I was like, okay. And he goes, and when I'll tell you what, we worked a deal, if I made a sale. So, sure enough, first house they put me into, the canvasser knew it. I walked in, had all the Kirby stuff with me, and that couple looked at me and they went, oh, Kirby. And I went, yep. And they went, oh, we've seen y'all 3 times. And I went, cool. I said, so y'all already know? They said, yeah. I said, all right. So I just started my little thing anyways. 45 minutes later, we're doing paperwork.
Yep.
And that was one thing that I prided myself on. And it wasn't the fact that I was like manipulating these people into it, because I still stand by the product. I think Kirby's still one of the great machines that are out there. Shout out to you, Kirby. But it's
a major investment. It's a life-changing investment.
Yeah. I still have one. I still use it,
Yeah.
But
it's same with insurance. It's a life-changing decision, and you need to be able to sit back and make that decision. That's how I would look at things.
Yep.
So that's what I would do, is let the customer make the decision. And I knew whether or not to pull a little harder, or, no doesn't mean no. No means convince me, or I haven't got enough information to say yes.
Exactly.
But you can't always push people like that.
Yeah, I could do a podcast on sales, which anyways, but the thing is, so I think though, but go back to the sales part and the empathy part, is you have to be empathetic to be able to close or be able to communicate. For example, you can tell when somebody's upset, and sometimes they just need a pat on the back, or, hey, are you okay? Just those things right there.
Yeah.
And if you notice that other people around them go, well, what's wrong? Are they upset? Right. So that tells me that you're empathetic.
Yeah, I'm what they call a empath, sensitive, intuitive. They just put labels on it about 5 years ago for me, or I did anyways. I'm sure it's been around longer than that, but that's what I've been labeled, I guess, if that's what you want to call it. I'm an empath, sensitive, intuitive.
I like it. We'll run with that one.
Yeah, there you
go. For me, I am empathetic. I do have empathy. I can read the room. I'm not you at all, but
right.
So that's when you start talking about the girl next to you and crying and going through this infrasound. I wanted to share, my zapping with you, and it took me, and Jacob, if he was here, he would tell you the same thing. Yeah, it took me a little bit to recover from it.
Yeah. And see, a lot has happened. A lot's transpired since then, but yeah, that wasn't, it's, like I said, I'm still kind of terrified of these things. I'm not, and I'm not, people say, I hear people that'll say, oh man, I just can't wait to see one. I'm like, be careful what you wish for.
You know what? Okay, here's most people. So, Justin, who runs Cribs of the Corn, he had an encounter in his teens as well. And he tells everybody, I've seen it. Don't need to see it again. I'm good.
Nope. It would be nice to be able to get that vindication if somebody else is there. And I've gotten that somewhat with the eye shine incident and a couple other things.
I think I would be more afraid of the eye shine because I can't see it but the eyes.
Right.
And as soon as they would blink, I would probably, I don't know what, I mean, I'd like to say I know what I would do, but I don't know until I'm in that situation.
And this was right out of a Scooby-Doo cartoon. I swear it was a cluster of us. There's about 6 of us together, one dog, and we're in the dark. And we're all looking at the same pair of eyes. And while we're looking at them, we were just sitting there staring at it. And we could see this thing swaying from one side of the tree. Then the eyes would go black, and then it'd go to the other side of the tree. And clearly we could see the outline of this thing. And it was big. And I just got tired of looking at it. So earlier in the day, I had a friend. I lost him to COVID, unfortunately, but he was an audio guy. He had parabolic mics and would go out in the woods, and he had some incredible audio he'd catch on his property here in Georgia. And he caught a like what has been deemed a warning grunt, which was a wah. That's what he let me hear this audio just a few hours before we had this eye shine incident. He let me hear this wah. And so we're standing there, as I said, clustered like Scooby-Doo, and we got these eyes in front of us, just like a Scooby-Doo cartoon, you know.
Yeah.
And I just got to the brain. I just got kind of tired of just sitting there. I wanted to see something happen, so I let out a whoa. And when I let out the whoa, these eyes, the ocular size got bigger, and they went from a light white yellow color to an amber orange, like that. And
Oh,
it was
wow.
and Keith, the guy that we were with, and his last name's right on the tip of my tongue. I can't think of what it is. But he went, Jason, don't do that. And I'm like, man, I'm tired of staring at this thing. Are we going to just sit here and stare at it? Are we going to learn something? I wanted to learn something, you know. Well, we learned something, but that incident is documented in that book by my friend. And damn it, Keith's going to kill me because I can't remember his last name. But sorry, Keith. But but yeah, you
Sorry,
know,
Keith.
I've gotten my vindication
Keith
now, you
emailed
know.
me the link to your book.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's easy to find. You can find it anywhere. It's a good book. But Force Friends of the Night, I think is what it's called. But oh, damn it. I got to get away from it because I can't remember his last name.
That's
Since I had COVID in January of 2022, and I had the, I mean, I don't know, people can say what they want to about the virus, but I had that Omicron thing, or whatever it was, and it impacted my health tremendously. I have a immune issue. It attacked my immune response and attacked my inflammatory response. So I have arthritis as it is, but it went 100-fold since. So I've been recovering from a lot of that. But in my research with this post-COVID long haul, that's what I deal with, is post-COVID long haul.
we can't really talk about that on the show.
Oh, I know. Well, anyway.
That
I have
gets
a
flagged.
neurological impact from it. And one of the things that I have is brain fog. I have tremendous brain fog, so I can't remember people's names anymore. So it's probably good I'm not on on Facebook anymore because I can't remember anybody's names, anyways.
Well, that's what
But
Facebook is for, so you can pull their name up.
that's right.
Keith,
Faces
so
there.
and so. There you see.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
many Keiths do I know? I know 3 Keiths. All right.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. But so yeah, so my brain has gotten a little scattered as far as names and dates and stuff. But the incidents have happened and they've been documented. And like earlier, we were talking about BFRO. You know, if you were to go on the BFRO website and look up the county where I had my encounter, it's Jefferson County, New York. But if you look on that database, they have one recorded sighting in Jefferson County. And what's interesting about it is it's a wild man article that was written in the Sacketts Harbor newspaper, my hometown newspaper, the Exeter, I think it was what it's called, in like 1828 or something. And it was talking about a farmer in a nearby town called Ellisburg he was known to have a integrity and that kind of stuff and not be one for stories. He said that he had an encounter with a wild man. That's what they used to call them, wild men.
Yep.
On the property, and that they formed a posse to go try to chase this thing down, but they never got it. Well, turns out my little hometown, Sacketts Harbor, that wild man encounter, that wild man article in the paper was the very first wild man encounter ever reported in an American newspaper. And it's just wild that it happened, you know.
That's pretty cool.
It happened less than 5 miles from where I had my encounter, where this farmer allegedly had his run in. Happened, and you know, that was in the 1800s. And in actuality, the property, my brother lived on the property until his death back in July, but they're still there. My brother was still have things happening, like, you know, they had deer season. They had a deer that they had just shot, and they were draining, and something lifted the deer off the hook and carried it away. Didn't drag it away, carried it away. And then
I believe that 100%.
Yep. And then another time he just bought a brand new 50-pound bag of dog food, and he had it on his back porch. He went out to feed the dog the next day, and the food is completely gone. The entire bag was gone. And he swore like, man, my neighbors are stealing from me, And it turns out it's, these creatures they're
Sasquatch.
still on the property. Yep, they're still on the property. So I'm certain they've always been there, this area. They've always been there. And I think that they've watched my family. It's always been family land. They probably have watched me since I was a little boy. They know exactly who I am. And that's why I believe that these things are, they're not a dumb ape. They're a being. They're a soulful being. They're a people of some type. I want to make sure that's on your
That's on there.
Yeah, I want you to know that they are a people, and they're not a dumb ape. And people can sit here. I always mention this too. You have in these Bigfoot circles, you have the science-minded. It's a dumb old North American wood ape. And then there's the woo-woo people. And, how I put it, there's a lot of science in the woo-woo, and there's a lot of woo-woo in the world. So don't knock the woo-woo. And, a few years ago, they did a United Bigfoot community. It was around the 50th anniversary of the Patterson-Gimlin film. I think it was the 50th anniversary, but the whole mantra was a United Bigfoot community. We've never had that. And it'd be interesting if the science-minded and the woo-woo-minded could get together and maybe listen to each other.
Well,
we might be able to get a little bit.
Real, on that one right there, I hate to interrupt you, but I think that there's more of what you just said that happens. The science-minded and the woo-minded do get together.
They do.
A lot more. And it's...
I know they do in my groups, not in most groups, but they do in mine. Yeah.
And I think they do because, I'll be honest with you, like, when I was on Sasquatch Chronicles, Wes always asked, his, who was interviewing at the end, what do they think Sasquatch is?
What do you think these are? Yeah.
My answer has changed probably 100 times now about it. Because I honestly, I don't know. At one point in time, I was thinking this is a 100% flesh and blood creature. And then I started going, well, maybe there's something supernatural to it. And then, the supernatural aspect of Sasquatch to me isn't possibly per se supernatural, but something that's biologically physical that we just don't understand.
Absolutely.
When it comes to the cloaking, the infrasound, there's so many things about this creature.
Absolutely.
And it's so unique.
Yep.
And what drives me nuts about it, when you come to for some of the non-believers out there, is they're like, there's no way a creature like that could exist. And I just go, platypus.
No shit.
Platypus.
Look how long they talked about. Yeah, look how long they talked about the silverback gorilla that was a myth.
Exactly.
They used to have, it was a legend for years until they finally caught one in the 20s, I think it was. In the 1920s, they finally caught one, or they got one, proof of one. But yeah, there's... I don't, I like to keep things open. I like to stay kind of open with things because, it's like you, I've had all sorts of determinations that have changed over the years. I've thought everything from watered down Nephilim to space creatures. Who knows? I've thought all sorts of stuff.
Well, that's what I tell everybody too. When you do research, and I'll warn folks, be careful when you do your research because
it's a slippery slope.
It is. I did an episode on, I called it a canine encounter, and it's a canine discussion. Because I'm fascinated with Bigfoot. There's a ton out there on Bigfoot, but Dogman to me was always fascinating. The idea and the
terrifying.
concept.
It's more like it, but
yeah. So to me, it's if it's scary and weird, I'm fascinated with it. Which my parents were worried about me, but I love my parents. So the research I was doing on this, it started off in one direction, and I ended up going down this rabbit hole. And anyways, I had notes and pages and all scattered due to this, trying to dig into it. And you could do a whole podcast, not just an episode, but a whole podcast just on, Dogman and Wolfman, werewolves.
Absolutely.
I think they go hand in hand. So with Bigfoot, though, I warn everybody, so be careful because you could end up down a rabbit hole coming to Sasquatch to where he is riding around in a UFO with little green men with Elvis and Tupac.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I don't know if you know the gentleman I'm about to mention, but there was a man that used to be quite active in research. Well, I'm gonna preface this the guy I want to talk about with this other guy. Do you remember J.C. Johnson? Did you know J.C. Johnson?
Rings a bell.
Well, he was like the Indiana Jones of Bigfoot. He did research in the Four Corners area of the United States, and his father-in-law is or was. I hope he's still living. He's such a nice man. His name is Leonard Dan, Chief Dan. I don't know if you've ever heard of Chief Leonard Dan,
That
but he was
that rings a
he was
bell as
a
well.
he was an elder with I don't know which First Nations tribe. I want to say Hopi, maybe Navajo. I'm not sure really, and I apologize. No disrespect. Anyways, I when I was first getting into this subject and struggling with what we were just talking about, what is Bigfoot and that kind of stuff, Chief Dan helped me. He gave me some exercises to learn how to be able to see things without my eyes. And that's the only way I'm going to describe it. He gave me some tricks, and I keep them to myself. But if we ever get to research together sometime, Matthew, I want to, and I'll tell you a trick off interview or off tape, whatever. I want to give you a trick that I want you to try in your research that'll determine whether or not what you're dealing with is a Bigfoot or not. And Chief Dan taught me this trick, but I'll get back. I want to get back on point. When I was struggling with my fear and what these things are and that kind of stuff, JC and I were good friends, and we lost him to a pneumonia-like virus a year or two before COVID or any of that. But anyways, he introduced me to Chief Dan, and Chief Dan used to kind of counsel me, and he shared this statement with me that was very poignant and comforting. And he said, Jason, he said, Bigfoot, Dogman, aliens, ghosts, paranormal, supernatural. He says they're all part of man's great truth. And if you can, get any comfort from that, that's what we're doing. We're all just trying to figure out man's great truth. And that was a lot of help to me. And it's also, inspiring, and it keeps me pressing on because I want to know the truth. And, and it pushes me. And, it's crazy to think that a guy that's terrified and could wet his pants on, any second will go out into the woods because I have to face my fear. I need to, and it's not that I want to see one. I don't want to see one. I don't. But I kind of need to see one with someone else so I can have a little bit of you saw it. I saw it. Because I didn't have that as a little boy. Other than with my cousin Jerry, and then he and I, never really talked about it. My brother and I, we talked about things, behind closed doors, but he didn't like me talking about things, to other people. And, so I've used names on this show here, and it's not a big deal. They're both gone now, and it's not a big deal. But I push through with the truth for guys like that because they my brother had his own demons and stuff, and he struggled with a lot of things, and he saw things that may or may not have been there. But the one thing that terrified him, and he would say there's only two things he was afraid of: my mother and Bigfoot. And so, I've been there, and I used to have that same thing. I'm a little bit more fearful of other things now. Bigfoot's the least scariest thing in the world for me right now, truly, but it still does terrify me.
And I get that. I mean, when you went through you went through not horrifying, but you went through a terrifying experience.
Yeah, it was.
And you're, especially if you're not prepared for it, you're not, these encounters do leave a mark. And, and I've tried to explain this to a lot of people before. They leave a mark. It's there. It makes an impression. And a lot of people become obsessed, with it. Or they do the complete opposite. I'm not going to the woods again. Numerous hunters out there who grew up like you in the woods, wanting to do this, have an encounter, and they won't go back. This other research team that we're part of, ours, Bigfoot Cartel, there's a guy in there who's had some pretty terrifying encounters. He won't go alone.
Right.
And he won't want to be out there at night. And, but he's like there with you. I got to see it. I have to see it. And, I've told everybody, once you have this encounter, it's on you.
Yep.
We did a paranormal investigation in Jacksonville, Arkansas, and at a battlefield. I wasn't expecting too much. I really wasn't. I thought it'd be really neat to record an episode in a battlefield. I thought that'd be cool, at night. Oh, how cool, spooky time. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so we had somebody out there, non-believer, doesn't believe, nothing at all, got touched. Full blown, fingers going across their back, touched.
Yep.
So, and that changed their life. They were crying.
Yep.
And, after it's passed now, they'll be like, oh, well, I still don't believe it. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. I'll give them a hard time. But I will tell you that, you coming on the show and talking about your encounter, I do think, that is good therapy. You've been on a few shows as well. I've been on a few shows as well. And, getting your story out there is good therapy for you, but it's also good therapy for others. Because there's a lot of people out there who've had encounters. And I was a member of a lodge here when I started the show last year. I can say that now, last year. And they'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, Matthew's doing a Bigfoot podcast thing. Like, yeah, you ever had an encounter? Like, I don't believe in it. 10 minutes later, they're pulling me aside going, you're not going to believe this, but, they won't talk about it. And there's a stigma to it. Or, like in your case as well, it left a PTSD mark on you. And PTSD, a lot of, being a veteran, a lot of people associate, when you say PTSD, they're like, oh, no. PTSD is any traumatic experience that scars you.
Yep.
Emotionally. Not, and I hate the term mentally scar you because it's an emotional scar.
Yep. Which is sometimes worse.
Yes. And I it's what it is. And then on top of that, you were full blown zapped. I mean, Doc, you were zapped. I will die on that hill right now. You were 100%. And not only were you zapped, you were like quadrupled zapped.
Yeah.
Which gave you the feelings of everything that you went through and the nightmares and the terror.
Yep.
And, I'm just curious though. Okay. All right. So you saw because I'm going to take you way back to the beginning. The World War I guy in uniform, did he ever keep showing up for you at all the rest of your life or?
No, he didn't. And, what's interesting is that that house when we sold the farm, the couple that bought the farm, it sounds kind of funny. The couple that bought the farm, the couple that purchased my parents' property, they ended up losing it through forfeiture or something or foreclosure or whatever. And that house laid abandoned for like 20 years and kind of got in bad disrepair. And a couple of the outbuildings caved in. The dairy barn, I think, burned down, or maybe it collapsed due to a snowfall or something. But I happened to drive. I used to go by there every time I'd go up to visit. I used to just go by and see the old home place, and because it was one of my favorite place to live when I was a kid. I loved that place. And I noticed that a couple had moved in and they were remodeling the place. So I pulled into the driveway. I said, "Hey, I used to live in this house when I was a little boy." And they said, "Well, come on in and show us what." And they had pretty much the setup was the same in the house, but they had, instead of the 14-foot ceilings, they'd put in drop ceilings, and they've done a little bit of changes with the stairway had actually been removed from the house and was in. Someone ended up installing that into their house, so they ended up building a new staircase, and it was cool. And so we're talking about the layout, and I said how I used to, sit over here, and that kind of thing, and. Then I asked him, I said, "You ever had any weird experiences in this house? Any with like ghosts or anything?" She says, "It's funny you should say that." She says, "When we first started doing the remodel," she said, "we would go to bed at night and we would hear like clinking glasses and like dishware, like clinking together like a party, and they would hear people talking, and they would hear old-timey country music." And she said they were Catholic. She said after we got the house where we wanted it, we had a priest come in and bless the house. She says we've never had anything else happen. They ultimately sold the house. I don't know who owns the house now, but that's kind of a cool story.
That is kind of cool.
Yeah,
it makes you wonder, maybe, or maybe it may. I may retract my statement then of it being a family member of yours. It may have been somebody passing through, just got stuck. I don't know. But I was just curious if it's, when did it stop?
Yeah,
Now,
I never
so
saw
you, no, the squash encounter, this wasn't at the house there, right? Where the Wilbur One Silver
No,
was
this
at?
was at the other property. Yeah,
Okay,
we
okay.
sold that farm and then we moved to another town a few miles away. We moved from Chaumont, New York to Sackets Harbor, as I mentioned. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. All right, I could
Yeah.
not remember that. So,
Yeah, and this area where our farm was is up near the Thousand Islands. If you've heard the famous Thousand Islands,
yeah,
that's where
I'm a fan of the
this
dressing. Sorry.
yeah, like the dressing.
Sorry, I had to say
Yeah,
it.
it's true. That's exactly where it was invented or whatever. Whoever created it, that's where they created it.
That's pretty cool.
But yeah, that's so it's kind of there's my hometown's kind of history's best kept secret. There's a lot of cool little history things there, and so but to find out that Sackets has always kind of had its kind of a niche in history, but to find out that it also has its place in Bigfoot lore, it's kind of cool.
That it is really cool.
It's kind of a cool to find that out, years later to realize that, that's my hometown and not five miles from where I had my run in. The very first wild man encounter ever printed in an American newspaper happened. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's bragging rights. I mean, like I grew up in the Uintas, which come to find out as an adult,
Right.
and my stepdad's the one that told me. He was like, Skinwalker Ranch. I was like, yeah, that's the show. And I'll just keep my opinions to myself. I'll just say the word produced.
Right.
He goes, yeah, that's about 30 miles of the crow flies from the cabin. I went, no way.
All right. That's interesting.
And he goes, yeah. He goes, you didn't bother looking it up? I was like, no, because it's, produced, and leave it at that, Dad. But, but no, I do want to tell you real quick, because we'll do this, and we're going on about 2 hours now.
Right.
So it's going to be a long episode. I do want to say, Doc, I do appreciate you coming on the show, and I do want to thank you for being open with your encounters and being open and honest about it. You put there was a lot of emotion. I heard it, and I do want to say thanks for that. And I think your story is going to reach out to some folks. Might be helping some other people along. Might be struggling with some, encounters of their own. I do want to, say that don't stay away from the woods. I mean, it's
Right.
They're out there.
No, I press on. I still press on. I actually enjoy the woods today. I didn't used to. I've come a long way.
Well, you're doing great, and I think the more you do this, and the more active you get with it, I think you'll get better and be able to help more people out.
Right. Yeah, I agree. By the way, I know when we first started talking, I had mentioned. Did you happen to see that the beer commercial? Did you happen to see that?
I did
you
not.
watch it?
I did not.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So, I work a full-time job.
Yeah.
This year, so I work a full-time job. I do this. I'm a single dad, and yeah. So again, my schedule. So I am gonna look at it because I remember once you mentioned it. Yeah. So now it's in my head. So
Yeah, it's New Realm Brewing Bigfoot. You can search it on YouTube, and the little thumbnail comes up is me sitting on a big, huge bar stool at a big, huge bar in the middle of the woods. But it was supposed to be more than it turned out to be. It was supposed to be a bigger promotion, but COVID kind of squelched everything down, and so it ended up just being one spot, and they curtailed the campaign after that year. But it's kind of cool. It's got almost 500,000 views. I'm kind of proud of it.
It's something to be proud of. Yeah, I'll definitely check it out. I promise you, I will check it out. It's on air.
Great.
It's out there in public. We're still
there you
recording.
go.
So
Yep.
I'll definitely check
on the
it
record.
out. All right. Well, Doc, sir, I definitely appreciate you coming on, man. Thank you so very much. Yes, thank you again. I'm going to try and probably get you back on later on in a couple of months or so. I got kind of a busy schedule coming up. But yeah, definitely. I've got you on TikTok now. You got my phone number now. So
Yep. Sounds good.
yeah, you can't lose me on Facebook.
No, I can't lose you there.
Not at all. All right. Thank you, sir.
All right, man.
All right. Well, everybody, that was another episode of the Drunken Cryptids. I hope you enjoyed it. Remember, if you've had an encounter and you want to come on the show, email me, drunkencryptids@gmail.com. Don't forget to give us a like and a share. I appreciate the likes and share, you guys. stay strong out there, stay in the woods, keep looking out there, but most importantly, make sure you stay safe.
Do anything that